Good morning, and thank you for joining us for Hyliion's Q1 2023 Earnings Call. So we want to take a moment and address some of the questions that all of you posted online. So question number one is, can you please explain the benefits and or differences of the ACF credits and the ACT credits and how the Hypertruck ERX system qualifies for either? So ACT is a mandate that's being put on the OEMs. So it's saying how many of the vehicles they ship into these CARB following states need to be ZEV qualifying vehicles. So under that mandate, we'll qualify for 75% of the credits that a normal BEV or fuel cell truck would qualify for. Now, that came out about a year ago. The newest mandate, which is ACF, which is the mandate actually being put directly on the fleet in terms of how many vehicles they need to adopt. Under that one, we're going to qualify for 100% of the credits that a normal BEV truck or a fuel cell truck would qualify for. So that's a huge win for us and for fleets because they're seeing our solution as being a very practical way in order to be able to obtain these credits. The next question is, can we shed some light on the ERX and will it be allowed to operate or not be allowed to operate in the ports of California? So this was your world at Union Pacific. I know you did a lot with drayage, so you want to take this question?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, a lot of experience with drayage in Southern California. So there's a registry of trucks called the Drayage Registry, which allows trucks to go into either the ports or rail yards in Southern California. At the beginning of 2024, no trucks that aren't zero-emission trucks will be allowed to be added to that registry. So our Hypertruck ERX won't be allowed. However, the Hypertruck Carno, when running on hydrogen, emits zero CO2. So we think it could be allowed once we commercialize that product.
Great. What is the expected timeline for Carno stationary to come to market? So at ACT Expo just a couple of weeks ago, we showcased a lot on saying we're going to get into stationary. And then on today's call, we unveiled for the first time that we're planning to do initial demonstration deployments of the Carno system in stationary applications next year in 2024. So we're actually going to be bringing the Carno into stationary first before we're putting it into trucks. Really driven by getting certification as opposed to like development. So we see it's actually a faster timeline to certify in stationary than it is in the vehicle, and that's why we'll be ready to launch demos next year in stationary applications. Then the next question is 3D additive printing seems to be following Moore's law. How does this look in terms of being able to produce Carnos at cost parity to a diesel engine? So we're not ready to share exact costs yet on the Carno system. What we can say is we're looking to be much more in the cost ballpark of where a diesel engine is as opposed to where fuel cells are right now. But as we look at 2026 and the years going forward from that, though, we see there are going to be a lot of advancements, improvements in printing time and reducing the cost of printing. So we see that then we're even getting into being at a more competitive sort of cost point. So the good news, though, is that we don't need to rely on breakthroughs from additive in order to get to a reasonable cost. 2023 technology, where it is today, can get us there. Next question for Jon is, how are you on cash, and are there any plans on doing an offering?
Okay, great question. So we reported this quarter that we have $385 million of cash left on our balance sheet in terms of cash, short-term and long-term investments. We also stated today that we expect to burn about $150 million of that cash throughout the whole year. So if you include the first quarter, compare back to the $422 that we reported at the end of last year, that would leave us with around $275 million roughly at the end of this year. And so that really gives us the flexibility to not need to raise capital. Our stock is unfortunately a little bit lower than we would like, or a lot lower than we would like. And so if we were to issue any more stock now, we would be diluting our shareholders. In other words, having to issue a lot of shares to generate much cash. So we would like to defer that as long as possible. And so what the actions that we're taking now will help stretch our cash into 2024, into 2025, and give us a chance to start making money off of our powertrain and the Carno engine.
Great. And then last question is, can you talk about the infrastructure around electric trucks, charging stations, hydrogen refueling, breakdown services? I imagine sales will be more challenging without these or a plan in place. So I actually think infrastructure is the biggest problem when you're thinking about adopting BEV or hydrogen-powered vehicles. Because as we shared in a keynote presentation that I gave out at ACT, the infrastructure is actually going to cost more than the vehicles are going to cost. So if a fleet's thinking about buying BEV trucks, let's say you're going to spend $10 million on BEV vehicles, you're probably going to be around $15 million to set up charging infrastructure. And this doesn't happen overnight, right? It takes time. We've heard quotes of like it takes over a year just to get a transformer in order to provide the power to a location. So this is where we see there's going to be some big struggles with people adopting BEV and fuel cell trucks. Thankfully, with the Hypertruck ERX or the Carno running on nat gas, these issues are avoided because natural gas refueling infrastructure already exists, and renewable natural gas is already the dominant fuel being provided at these stations. So we think that our platform, our technology is really poised to not have infrastructure issues and be ready to be deployed in the very short term. So those are a few of the questions that were asked. I know there were many more, but we appreciate you guys taking the time to submit some questions, and we hope to be able to showcase a lot more as we go into our June 27th investor conference here in Austin. Hopefully you can tune in for that. Thank you.
Thank you.